Speaking practice number 30. Today's question. Do you think that governments should preserve cultural heritage by maintaining historic buildings, or strive for development by replacing them with modern buildings? This question is probably easy to understand, but this word, strive, is a little difficult. Strive just means to try hard, to make an effort. You can say strive to get better or strive to change. In the case of the TOEFL, this is similar to an independent speaking question. You have to explain your opinion, but you have only 15 seconds to prepare. Then you have to speak for 45 seconds. Want to try? If you're not doing anything else, why don't you think about it now? Try to make a short speech on your own. Then, when you're ready, let's take a look. Example answer. I think cities should modernize and strive for development. These days, the number of people making a living in the city is much larger than in the past. City workers, like my father, have commuting times that now are longer because the roads are becoming much more crowded. And every day, these people are turning on air conditioners, using computers, and flushing toilets. Old buildings just cannot keep up with demands. Also, buildings must not only be more efficient, but safer than they used to be. Just as in the past, earthquakes and fires remain serious threats. But now, thanks to new kinds of building materials and modern construction methods, they're stronger and safer than ever. So it would be unwise for people to work in old structures built to obsolete standards. Key words. Should we preserve old buildings or develop new ones? The first word is threat. Threat means something that looks dangerous, something that seems like it could cause damage. A threat is something scary. An angry bear that looks like it's going to eat you is very threatening. It looks dangerous. And a monster from hell could also be very threatening. It really seems like it could cause some damage. Next is make a living. Make a living means to work and earn enough money to support your life. You can make a living by fixing cars, selling vegetables, or building houses. Whatever you do to support your life, that's how you make a living. Keep up. Keep up means to match the speed or level of success of others. For example, if you're running with a group of people, but the others are not running as fast as you, they need to keep up. That means they run at the same speed as you. Keep up is also used in work or study. Number 4 is flush. Flush means to flood something with water in order to clean it. In English, we say flush the toilet when we push the lever to make the water go down. Number 5 is obsolete. Obsolete means something is not used anymore. It doesn't match the expectations of modern standards. For example, we used to type on typewriters, but now we have modern computers with keyboards. And these old phones feel really nostalgic, but now we have smartphones. And I remember the Walkman. I had one back when I was younger, back in my 40s. But they're not used anymore. Checklist. Let's talk about the important points of making a short speech. First, did you follow a good order? The most important point is to start with a clear introduction. You must always do this. For the rest of your speech, there are several ways to continue, but this way is very simple. Just give a reason. Then, after you give a reason, you have to explain the reason. make your speech stronger by giving another reason before you finish. But when you give another reason, you have to explain that one also. One more time. The most important is to start with a clear introduction. Then, when you give your reason, make sure you explain with more details. Also, when you give another reason, you have to explain that one also with more details. The next point on the checklist says to include specific details and examples. Again, let's look at today's speech. Remember, when you include details, you talk about who, what, where, when, how, and why. In today's speech, who means city workers and my father. What refers to computers, earthquakes, toilets, air conditioners, and fires. Then you should mention where, which in this speech is in the city and in old buildings. Talking about when, I mentioned these days, the past, every day, and now. How crowded is it? Much more crowded. And how are new buildings constructed? They're much more efficient and safer. And by using modern construction methods. Finally, don't forget to ask the question why. Why develop new buildings? Because the number of people is much larger, and because earthquakes and fires are still dangerous. As you can see, including a lot of details makes your speech richer. It makes the ideas you want to explain easier to imagine and understand. Point 3. Is there some variety? It's important to use different kinds of grammar patterns and sentence structures. It shows you have a natural ability and that you can describe any situation with accuracy. Look at today's speech. We'll see what kind of patterns I used. During the first half of the speech, I used words like making a living, commuting, turning on, and flushing. These are all present continuous verbs using the ing ending. These ing words are used to describe a scene, to explain what a situation is like right now. Then I said buildings must not only be more efficient, but safer. This is a not only, but also type of pattern. It's good to use in a comparison, to make it stronger and more focused. Later I said, it would be unwise to work in old buildings. Saying it would be unwise is a creative way to make a recommendation. You could say, you should not live in old buildings, but that's normal and a little boring. So you see, it's natural and helpful to use a little variety in your speech. Point number 4. Did you use appropriate vocabulary? In the beginning I said, cities should modernize and strive for development. So the topic today was about modern cities and development. Then the words I use should be related to these ideas. The word commuting is very important for city life. It means going to work or school. Then I talk about keeping up with demand. As times change and new technologies and new needs appear, we need to keep up with the change. Then I mention building materials and modern construction methods. Building and construction are important topics when talking about urban development. Then I mentioned the word obsolete. I already explained this word's meaning, but it's very appropriate for the topic. It's the opposite of modern. Point number 5 asks, did you stay on message? Stay on message is an expression used by people who make speeches. It means you should focus on the main idea. Let's see. For the introduction, I said, cities should modernize and strive for development. So I'll have to focus on this idea. Here I talk about commuting times and how roads are becoming more crowded. This is related to the growth of cities. and the need for development. Next, I talk about how buildings have to be more efficient and safer as well. Here, I talk about new kinds of building materials and modern construction. And finally, I contrast it all with the word old structures, which just means old buildings. Once again, you can see that from the beginning all the way to the end, I stay focused on the main idea. So looking at the entire checklist, we have many things to think about. First, you have to put the speech in a good order. Start in the beginning with a good introduction. Then you have to include many details. Remember to think about who, what, where, when, how, and why. This will give your speech a lot of color. Next, it's good to use variety. Think about your grammar and sentence patterns. You can use different verb tenses to change your grammar, and make some sentences longer or shorter to change your emphasis. In the sports world, balance and finesse are very good, but so are strength and toughness. If you're an athlete, being fast and strong would make you the perfect sportsman. And of course, you have to use the right vocabulary. If you're talking about insects, don't say that ants live in houses, because ants live in colonies. And finally, you have to stay on message, and that means you have to focus. While doing all these things would be great, there's actually one more point, and that's automaticity, or fluency. Actually, native speakers do all of these things naturally when they speak every day. You do this in your language too. So when you speak, try to speak with confidence. Then the audience will respect you more and agree with what you have to say.